Hey look, I know we're all really excited to check out the Final Four of this Final Fantasy tournament, but you really should check out Part 3 before you get to this one. So go ahead and go back to that one, then come here, and we'll enjoy the championship together. So this is going to get tough here between Final Fantasy 9 and 10. I'll go first as a representative of Final Fantasy 10. I think because of all of the things that I said, this is a very strong entry in the series, and it's very much deserving of being in the Final Four, in my opinion. But also, knowing the arguments that Solois has consistently made on behalf of Final Fantasy IX, and also just kind of the general, respect that that game has in the community, I'm aware of that. I think I would go with 9. Objectively, it seems like it's probably the more deserving of the two, in my opinion.
It just isn't. It just isn't.
So now we're
now you're making you poison
people.
Now everyone's making wrong decisions.
So I'll go ahead and say this. This is tough. It's up against 10. I objectively 100% like 9 better. 10 isn't even on my top 5 list. But 10 has the best presented story of the series. It doesn't have the best story, but the way they present it and the way they do things is so good. Like, thinking back, it makes me just want to sit through and play it just to get the story. But as far as just everything I personally love about games, 9 does it all, and it does it so perfectly. I'm a big fan of lighthearted natures of characters that can just go awry, have dark backstories, have dark meanings, have just bad things happen to them that make that unfamiliarity kick in when they're acting gloomy and sad when they should not. I love that contrast, and I love the way 9 plays. I love the system in it of learning abilities off gear. 9, I can go on. I'm gonna stop talking. You all know everything I think.
You know what it is?
You know my answer.
it's just that Vivi is greater than Kimari.
Yes.
So that's what settled it.
Vivi carries.
I think it's hands down 10. I mean, this wasn't even a question. Once I saw the matchup, I was like 10 all the way. I think 10's better in almost every regard, and I'm not trying to trigger you, Solois. I just do. And it all comes back to the story.
Now we're in the anger phase.
And the ending. No, come on. It comes back to the story and the ending. Final Fantasy IX stumbles so hard at the end. It had the perfect ending teed up, and then just stumbles with a out of left field anime whoopie doop at the end. And it undercuts everything that could have been so great, and that keeps it out of my top 5. Whereas 10 not only sticks the landing, but it punches you in the gut, steals your wallet, and then leaves you crying in the rain. It's just, but in the best way, if that makes sense. 10 is a game that has stuck with me and will continue to stick with me. I think the systems are great. I love the characters. And 10 is my... And I actually like Blitzball too. I know people don't, but...
Oh, good transition, because I know Richard, who is going to have the power in this matchup, you have opinions on Blitzball, don't you, Richard?
I can never tell if it's going to end up being
Blitzball.
Oh, you dislike, because every time you say you have opinions, Richard, I don't know if it's going to end up being good opinions or bad opinions. So I'm always on the edge of my seat.
It's just the kind of guy I am.
So Richard, there's a lot of pressure on you here, but which way are you leaning?
9 or 10? That is a hard decision. Oh man. So I've played 10 more than I've played 9, but I will say that everything I've heard about 9 has always been really positive. And this is also, I think it's important to note that 9 and 10 are the last 2 Final Fantasy games that had the core Final Fantasy team. After 10, a lot of people that have been mainstays of the series left to go do other things. Yes. So 9 and 10 are like the swan songs of these developers, and I think that's why both of them have so much personality. Now, I think like I said earlier, 9 is more of a swan song to the classic era of Final Fantasy, while 10 ushers in the new era of Final Fantasy. So at the end of the day, personal preference aside, I would have to say, oh my God, this is so much harder than I thought it would be.
Just say it.
No, just say it.
Search your feelings. You know it to be
10.
true.
I have to go with 10.
Ah,
And
perfect. Perfect.
No.
cue the laugh.
Perfect.
Ah,
I'm
that's
writing
so-
it down.
Oh my God. Ah,
I'm sorry.
Hey.
I'm sorry. I know this would be an upset, but it's just
That's what you
All
get,
right.
Soloist.
Our first
6 over
finalist is
14.
going to be the 5 seed.
hey, what was
Final
the
Fantasy
first?
10.
What was the first seed again?
The first seed was Final Fantasy 9.
That's all I need. There you go.
That's all you
Wolfkinz.
need.
Let's
From
go.
oh, why don't you go check the Rotten Tomatoes while we're at it? All right, let's go. This will be fun. 7 and
All
6
right.
is going to be fun.
And which is interesting because
Oh,
we have
God.
2 sets of releases that came right after each other in the final
Mhm.
4. So we're looking at 6 and 7 on this other side of the bracket. Take it away, guys.
I would like to start off by saying the debate between 6 and 7 being better has been ongoing since the release of Final Fantasy VII. Like, this has been a very big argument in the Final Fantasy community for a very long time. So it is hard, like, especially considering I had to start off with 1 and 6 and also 7 and whatever else there was. But it is just, oh man. I would like to start off by saying that my personal choice is going to end up being 6. And the reason that I say that is because while we all are in agreement that Final Fantasy VII was really what got the series noticed, I would say noticed in North America, and what really got people interested in the series, I would have to say that Final Fantasy VI was like the proto Final Fantasy VII. There are some story points that end up getting reused in Final Fantasy VII. Most importantly, the point of Kefka being experimented on to be turned into the ultimate soldier and then turned insane and becoming the main bad guy. I mean, that right there, that's Sephiroth with the Genova experiments. And on top of that, I would just say that while Final Fantasy VII has the materia system and all that good stuff, Final Fantasy VI has a much more straightforward battle system. I mean, it becomes a little more complex earlier because you've got the Magikite and you've got the relics. So I would almost argue that Magikite and relics is almost proto-materia. Materia just took the 2 concepts and just kind of combined them into one thing. So it is just such a hard thing to have to decide, because it's like you're asking me what my favorite type of cheesecake is. It's like all cheesecake is good, just some is better than others. And unfortunately, in this case, I would have to say that 6 is better than 7. But I'm more interested in hearing what you guys have to say, because I will also say that I'm a little bit biased because Final Fantasy VI is my objective favorite.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I would give this one to 7. I think it's kind of going with a cheesecake analogy. I like whipped cream on my cheesecake. Okay, go with me here. It's kind of like, to me, like, yes, all cheesecake is great, but Final Fantasy VII was the first cheesecake that said, let's put some whipped cream on it, because it's the first one that takes that graphical leap. It does so many new things for the technological side, as well as for the reputation of the series as a whole. Because we could sit here going back and forth arguing about which game is better, which game plays better. And as you said, that's been done on the internet for, 20, 30 years now. So to me, it comes down to which one helped propel the series forward more. And I think that just hands down goes to Final Fantasy VII. I think that what it did for a whole as the series, it just, you have to tip it that way, because at the end of the day, which game is better comes down to so subjective. And we're all going to have different opinions on that. And they're so close to being quote unquote masterpieces of the series that I just think that we have to at least acknowledge what Final Fantasy VII brings in the meta argument about what would Final Fantasy be like today if we didn't have Final Fantasy VII? So that's my vote.
So I'm gonna chime in because Richard, as you were kind of comparing the two, I think you made a lot of really great points. There are a lot of similarities between the two. I've played a good amount of 7, the PS4 remaster. I've not touched 6 yet. 6 is going to be, now that I've played a Pixel remaster and I've kind of dipped my toe in that water, I imagine I'll probably play 1 next after Stranger of Paradise if that kind of grips me. But then 6 is, next in line for sure, because of just the hype around that one. I'm super excited to play that one eventually. That being said, I do think that the argument that you made, and Wolfkinz did a great job of putting this into words, but you made the comparisons that Final Fantasy VI did a lot of the same things 7 did, and it did them first. However, I think that 7 did fine tune and really just polish those things that you listed. And so, for that, and for, again, the arguments Wolfkinz made about just the legacy and the leap forward, I would go with 7 here.
So, Lois.
My heart.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we're already in the grand finals. Like I always knew it would come down between these two. No contest. And these are like 3 and 4 on my list, and it interchanges a lot. Like I love both of these games nearly together. And you're absolutely right about the subjectivity about picking whichever one's better, blah 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 blah. If I had to do that, I don't know. I think 6 has more replayability, and I think it's more fun of an experience. But it's impossible to deny everything 7 did. It has probably the most iconic moments in any RPG ever, and the most iconic soundtrack of anything almost.
Yep.
Talk about Eris. Like we haven't even mentioned that yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and there's only one game on this list that lets you take a hot tub with Bubba. Okay. So
Okay, with that in mind, I'm picking 6. Never wanted to remember that.
The Honeybee Inn is the greatest thing that ever happened to video games.
If I heard correctly, we've got 2, 6, 2, 7.
No, I don't know about. I was joking. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It's hard to say because I'm bouncing back and forth because I think 6 is a better game, but I think 7's more important. So which one do I weigh more important personally? But if I'm approaching this like I'm making the list, I have to think about which game. If I were to sit down and play a Final Fantasy game right now, which one would I want to play? I want to play the one that gives me the more liberty of customization, more personalization. And 6 has more characters, has its complex magic system as it does, has its magicite system. I have to go with 6. I love 6. I have to go with 6.
Come on.
All right. And I guess I didn't say it ahead of time, but because he was the last to speak, Solois was the tie-breaking vote.
Hold on now. Oh, does that mean I get tiebreaker in the finale? Because I haven't had it yet either.
No, the finale has to work.
I'm the only one left
Well,
after
The
Solois.
finale has to work differently. It can't be a 3-1 pick and he picks 10 and it wins. It cannot be like that.
Just tiebreaker.
No.
Just tiebreaker. If it comes
At
down
this
10
point,
to...
well, we've never actually had that yet to this point where it's been 3-1. I teased that and gave Richard some power, but he wisely did not abuse it. So I think, yeah, if it's 3-1, it's 3-1. Otherwise, I mean, if we end up tied in this last one, then I think I'm going to pull the host card and say that I'm the tiebreaker in the final. So we've got 6
I love it.
and 10.
I say we flip a coin for 7 and 6. This is crap.
It's the controversy.
Right.
We got to get the
sorry.
people talking, right?
Oh, Lord.
All
6
right.
over
So
7.
the long-awaited match.
I'm going to have to take my name off of this list. I'm going to have to make a statement. I do not endorse this.
Final Fantasy X, the 5 seed, and Final Fantasy VI, which is the 3 seed. So the top 2 seeds getting knocked off there, and somewhat surprising true March Madness form, I might add, and which is what it's all about, Wolfkinz. So okay, as a representative, I wasn't really expecting 10 to make it this far. I'll be totally, I mean, I outright voted against
me
it in the
neither.
last round. So I think Final Fantasy X is enjoying being in this finals matchup. And I think I love the story of this one. Wolfkinz has talked about, the great ending that it has, and how it really sticks that, which is great. I think that's always a huge plus in any game's win column. It is being able to stick the landing and really feel rewarding at the end. And 10 does that. So I think 10 is a true contender, and I've not played 6, if I'm being honest. So I'm gonna yield my vote until I hear from you guys as far as where you're leaning with this one.
Well, Soloist just put 6 over 7, so I don't expect him to go 10 on this one.
I will say I've played a little bit of 6, I've played a little bit of 10. I kind of quit playing 10 around the time Seymour got introduced. I kind of stopped playing 6 around the time Kefka won. I will say I really, really, really like 10's tech tree. I think that it's got just a bunch of potential. And I would say, gameplay wise, that 10 has the edge specifically because of that. Because also 4 games later, you've got a little more capability with the system. You've got a little more capability with what you can do with something like that. I always thought that this would be an easier matchup in my mind because I've stand 6 until the end of time, but 10 is also a pretty solid game on its own. And honestly, both of these are kind of swan songs for their retrospective eras.
Yeah.
6 was the last 2D Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy X was the last Final Fantasy made by that core development team. And so both of these games, I think, have a lot of love put into them. And I think it does come a lot down to personal preference and, in one respect, nostalgia. Because I know some of us grew up with 6, some of us grew up with 10. Some of these games might have been like our first introduction to the series. So based on that, before I make a decision, I want to hear from everyone else.
It's only fair, right?
All right.
It's so hard.
So what I really like about 10, and we've talked about this on Highwind Herald too, because of what you said, it's the last one of that development team. It is kind of a swan song for what Final Fantasy was, and it is an introduction to what Final Fantasy is about to become. And I think that because of the updated graphics scale too from some of the older Final Fantasies, it makes it a fantastic entry point into the series for someone who's never played it. I had a friend actually that was wanting to get it, and I recommended 10, and I said, this is the place to start because it has enough of what's old and enough of a preview of what's new to where you can go in any direction from there. So I think that story-wise, 10 is still one of my favorites. And I like the intimacy of the cast, how well you get to know the characters. I like that because we might not care about graphics, being old school RPG people, but a lot of newer gamers do. And it's an easier sell to get someone to try Final Fantasy X than it is to try anything before like 9, just because of the graphics. So I do like that it acts as a very nice, solid entry point into the series. And I just I give this one to 10. I mean, I'm not trying to be controversial. I just, in my mind, I do think 10 is one of the best. And I have personally gotten people into the series because of 10. So I like it for that too.
Solus, what do you have for us?
There's no universe I'd ever put 10 above 6.
Yeah, we already knew that.
10, I keep hearing 10 as a swan song of past games and ushering into a forward, era of moving on. But 6 is a masterpiece. Like, we don't need to move past that. Like, 10 is ushering into a new age, but that doesn't make it better than a masterpiece of storytelling, of character development, of gameplay. It's just hard to move past that. There's too many problems with 10. 10, it has a great game. Everything it does great. It does amazing. But you're still not getting past the awkward voice acting. Like we said earlier, the weird controls on when you're not in battle. The characters are not all great. They're really good, but then you have your Kimaris for every,
Yeah, but you've got like
you have
20 throwaway characters in 6 that are like just optional
but that's
side characters.
well, that's the thing, is like 6's characters. It has its main characters that have its story, but then a lot of those characters at the end are more so like secret weapons almost. They don't add to the story. They're optional completely. Because if you don't have to get even a fraction of those characters to beat the game. Like
Right.
the huge cast is all optional characters. They're just there for gameplay.
And that's actually a drawback for me. I like my concise, intimate cast where I get to know all the characters. I don't like, useless pixels that I don't really know. That's always been a drawback of 6 for me. It's just because it gets a little too big. That's a personal
And then-
useless pixels.
I'm telling Go-Go, that's so mean.
Exactly.
But we're
You
getting
tell
into
Go-Go.
we're getting into 6, and I mean, you have the best crafted antagonist probably in gaming history. You have some of the biggest twists, like we talked about, where he actually wins. Some of the most quotable lines from him alone, and this is all one character I'm talking about here, and that's just like the cherry on the icing of the cake, of the wedding cake. That is everything that Zistang does amazingly. It is,
But for every line that Kefka has, hold on. This is directly related to what you're saying. No matter how many lines Kefka has, it will never be as popular as the Titus laughing meme.
That's not popular for reasons you like it to be, buddy.
But it's popular.
But 6 is just, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I like 15 and 9 better, but I think 6 is a better game than 15. I just like 15 better, and 9's already off, so I can't talk about it anymore. But 6 is just, it's amazing. It's so hard to put. Not in a million years I thought 10 would make it to the grand finals. I thought it would drop out at top 4. I didn't think this would be even a conversation we're having. I think 10 is a special game. I think it is the most overhyped Final Fantasy game ever.
That's exactly what I feel about 6.
Well,
okay. Richard, with some more arguments being made, has that swayed you one way or the other?
To quote Patrick Starr, it seems we have reached an impasse. I do have to give my vote to 6. My heart lies with 6 in a lot of different ways. And yeah, I have to go with 6.
Don't let me down, host. Don't let me down.
So now I'm in the hot seat. I managed to avoid it to this point, really. This is tough, especially because, as I've acknowledged, I've not played 6. I just kind of know the legacy of it and the arguments that have been made here. I do have personal experience with 10, and that I enjoyed. It's meaningful to me. It's my first Final Fantasy game. They're both pretty twisty. There's full of twists, both these games. And so what I think I am going to settle this on is who did the twist better, based on the arguments that I've heard here. And for that reason,
let me just say one thing, okay? As you're thinking about twists. In Final Fantasy VI, you fight a god. In Final Fantasy X, you take on your own personal god that you've worshipped your whole life.
That is a good point,
brother.
That's a good point. So, yeah, with that in mind, the best twist, the game that does the twist better, in my opinion, is Kingdom Hearts 2 is the winner of this.
Oh no!
Okay, but we can agree on that.
All right. So I'm gonna go with 6.
Are you kidding me?
I can't get over the fact that he wins.
Oh my god!
And it's just that is the iconic character.
Poisoned him, Solois.
Villain. Well, and and Richard obviously argued for it very passionately from round 1. So I feel comfortable naming that our champion in this tournament. Wolfkinz is probably never going to come back onto the show.
I'm disowning all of you, including my brother.
That happened long ago. Don't even lie.
But I hope I at least argued some of these underdogs Well, I knew I had underdogs going into this, picking 8,
You made
both
a very
MMOs,
good
and
case.
4.
You made a
So-
very good case for 14. You made
Yeah,
a
you did. Absolutely.
great case for
14.
I've done
I
my
think,
job.
14, I think, showed out in this one. I think 13 with the upset over 12 was a cool one to see. Have some new respect, obviously, for all in the final 4. 4 is one that is now on my radar.
You got to hand
starting
it to
out
10,
hot.
though. Making it to the championship, 10 really
10,
did
yeah.
well in this one.
Yeah, that was undeserving, but I'm
No.
I'm not
It
here for
wasn't
it.
undeserving.
Absolutely
This was
undeserving.
this was the beautiful.
So
I
if-
think we had a great final 4. We had a great, essentially top 5 if you also, well, top 6, or no, top 5 if you add in 14. So I'm very comfortable with how this shook out, and it's very
Hey,
interesting.
if we go and post this to a Final Fantasy forum, oh my god, that they will have to lock down. They will have to, they will have to be like, guys, the comments are locked. Several mods have left the team.
Yeah.
I mean it. I think we made some very controversial. That's what I will say it. I think we made some very controversial picks, but I think we also made some very good picks.
Honestly, I think the only controversial one was maybe 10 over 9.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can make legitimate arguments for every other decision we have.
Yeah, 7v6. That debate has raged on for years. So I'm sure that.
Yeah, I still want to recount on that one if we do this again. I'm just saying.
And hey,
live it.
after the introduction of 16, maybe that presents another opportunity to revisit this format. We'll see later down the line. But we now have our champion. The waiting in the sky Final Fantasy March Madness champion is Final Fantasy VI. So Kefka wins again. And guys, I gotta
look what
thank
you did. Look what you all did.
I gotta
Give him
thank-
another win.
I got to thank both Wolfkinz and Solois for joining us. For sure, absolutely. If you are a Final Fantasy fan and you are not following the Highwind Herald podcast, then you're missing out, because these guys obviously have a lot of knowledge, a lot of passion for the series, and it's been a pleasure listening to them. It's been a pleasure having this conversation today. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you a lot. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this. Yeah, if you do listen to our show, it's just more of us arguing back and forth. But we're actually not as nice to each other because we're trying to be polite in company here. But this was great. This was a lot of fun. Even when you voted against me, I still had a pretty good time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no. So this was your best behavior. So if that gives
some decent taste.
So I think, Richard, I want to thank you as well for joining in this conversation and bringing your perspective. But what did you name yourselves in the last podcast episode? You came up with Highwind something.
The Highwind Himbos.
There you go. Highwind Himbos.
That's a working title.
Set in stone. Highwind Himbos.
So that's it. We did it. We have a champion. We have a definitive answer to what is the best mainline Final Fantasy, and no one could possibly disagree with our answer, right? Right? Okay, I guess you can easily debate the legitimacy of our collective knowledge, more so coming from me, sort of weighing the team down, I'll admit that. But this was a super fun exercise, and I had a ton of fun going back and revisiting this conversation with Richard, who's been a good friend of mine, who has helped out a ton with the podcast, with the YouTube channel, and two really awesome people in Wolfkinz and Solois of the Highwind Herald podcast. So glad that I was able to meet them and to collaborate with them, not only on this conversation, but a few more times as well. Most recently, I was able to be a part of their 101st podcast episode. So if you have not had a chance to check that out, go ahead and check out your podcast feed of your favorite podcast service provider and jump into that right now. A lot of great stuff, more than just stuff with me on it. That's actually going to be the better stuff. And of course, they're also doing some great stuff over on YouTube, in addition to the Highwind Herald podcast. So check out Wolfkinz and Solois' individual YouTube channels as well. All of that is going to have links in the description of this episode. As for me, I am hoping to have some new content out for you all shortly. That's right, I said new, not just rewinds, but I'm excited about a lot of potential ideas, and I'm just really working to put some of that stuff together to finally get out there. Thank you so much for listening to all 4 parts of this special 4-part Waiting in the Sky rewind. Like I said, I had a blast revisiting this. I hope you did as well, and I hope you'll stick around for more.